everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for September 2nd. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and with me today is Pooya. How you doing, Pooya?
About as good as I can be. I'm doing well. I got adequate sleep last night, so I can't quite complain about that. Excited to be back once again for another live feed update. We're down to a small handful of these, Taran, so you got to cherish them when you get them.
Yes, only a few more weeks left in the game. We are here, of course, to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 24 live feeds. It was day 58 in the house, and we had an eviction, we had an HOH competition, and we had plans made for the week. So let's get straight into it here. Not much happened before the eviction. Kyle practiced his speech. He went to people with his sort of like, hey, can you tell Alyssa that I said nice things about her kind of stuff? And that was pretty much it.
Yeah. There's not much else to report here. Kind of same old from the last couple of days. So,
yeah. Kyle is going to, of course, be evicted, as you saw on the live episode last night. There were some reports around Twitter about the audience that there were not many people in the audience, but they were told specifically, and this is not surprising, we've known this, they were told not to boo. And so I guess instead of not booing, they decided they just weren't going to clap at all. He was going to come out to a silent audience, and the clapping you heard were members of the crew, apparently.
Yes, I did get some information from a listener as well who had a friend who was in the audience that confirmed exactly what you said, where they were like, we're just not going to clap then. And they're like, okay, crew, gather around. We're going to clap for this, man. Because we did hear a very golf clap, silent clap go on. Also, Kyle closed the door behind him. Did we pick up on this? Like, he definitely did not want the inside to see the reaction from outside.
He specifically had told Alyssa, please shut the door behind me. I don't want you all to hear them if they boo.
Which, bruh, like, if anyone knows exactly what's going on, it's the people in the house. It's not like they're not going to know what the perception could be outside.
They did hear the lack of enthusiasm and anticipated that, yes, that was in fact meaningful.
Yeah, when you have once a week for like fleeting seconds to hear an audience, you're going to be able to compare them to the other exits that you may have heard. So for Kyle's to sound way more different than others, I feel like that was a given, and I feel like they expected it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they did go straight into the HOH competition, and we saw, I think, roughly 90% of it before we cut away. And when the feeds came back, we discovered that once again, for the third time, Michael has won the HOH. And just like that, he will be in the final 6. But the question now, knowing what we know about the double eviction, is will he survive to the final 5? But for now, he has the HOH. He's in the final 6, and this is going to be our week.
Yep. I don't think anyone needed to see the competition to know who was going to have the leg up. The minute you saw this puzzle, I feel like all of us were going, yeah, this is probably Michael's to lose here. And at this point, he's one comp away from tying Janelle, which is wild to see. Very impressive to be able to dominate this many comps. And again, when he's not winning the comps, he's not been on the block. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think there's only been like 1 or 2 weeks where he has even been vulnerable, like to be evicted at all. His win percentage is also, I believe, higher than Janelle's. Ultimately ends up as, I think Janelle was at roughly 50% total. His is right now at, I believe, 62%. And that is not accounting for the many competitions that he threw. So worth noting. But yes, 8 competition wins means that he is just 1 away from tying the 9 that Janelle had. Now, if he were to tie it this week or in the double eviction, it would be tied in a different way. Janelle had 5 veto wins and 4 HOH wins. If he wins another veto, he will break the all-time single season record for veto wins with 6. There are a few people tied at 5. So he will stand alone there, as well as tie Janelle's 9 competition single season record, which has been untouched. Few people have gotten to 8. Nobody has gotten to 9 in 16 years. So he is very close to that. Talking about those competitions he threw, I saw somebody on Reddit had done like an analysis of that veto competition that he played, that he threw to Brittany, where they were counting the things, and discovered that, yes, in fact, Monty is correct. He had the closest answers to the truth of anybody who has ever played the competition in terms of his guesses for numbers. And that's including the answer he intentionally went way above on in order to throw it. If you account for the fact that he was only 1 off with his real guess, he is even closer to very, very close to the truth of what those numbers were. So yeah, definitely could have won that one. And it is definitely something to watch out for here. But again, winning this HOH means that he will be vulnerable in the double eviction and very likely will need to win the veto competition, which is not always a super winnable competition, and really could mean the end of his run, either having tied Janelle's record by winning this veto or coming just short.
Yeah, he really is OP. Like, it is wild when we talk about the percentage and we look at the comps in front of us. 6 vetoes potentially out of what? 9, 10? Like, that is wild to me. But also, he does have 1 out next week, in that if Brittany wins the HOH, then he should be fine to Final 5 and continue trying to get his legacy in by winning those comps and breaking the record. Because I think everyone else would probably go for him. Taylor. Taylor's a little bit muddy for me.
Yeah, we don't quite yet know what Taylor will do if she wins, especially in a double eviction where things are very fast and there's not a lot of time to sort of like get in her head. It will probably matter a lot, like who is trying to get into her head prior to the double eviction, which to this point has been Monty, who's been really pushing very hard. But there's a whole week before next Thursday at this point. So, who knows?
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see what the conversations are going into this week, because Lord knows, just because Michael won HOH doesn't mean people are not going to talk about targeting him, because that's going to definitely happen this week.
Yeah. So Michael is the HOH. They also got Zingbot. Zingbot came around, and we don't know exactly what Zingbot said. Obviously, we'll have to wait until the episode to hear it. But we did get an idea that of some of the zings, right? Michael was called ugly. It's says something about like, hey, masks are optional except when you have a face like Michael's. It's called his face ugly is the best that they could do there. Brittany's was something about like her eyes and the stare, which, like, again, I feel like this always happens. Like sometimes even with the comics, like the good comics don't, but the bad comics do. Certainly with the zings, it's all stuff that has nothing to do with the season. Like this, the Brittany stare is something that was like preseason material, like 2.5 months ago. Monty is called boring, or something along those lines. Alyssa was called useless, and I think essentially stupid, because there was something about like, oh, they had to repeat the zing, and Zingbot was like, oh, let me repeat it so that you can understand, Alyssa. Taylor was called cold-hearted.
Yes.
Which is like, what, a play on the false perception that people use to bully her? Like, I don't quite understand that one. Terrence was made fun of for like his DJing. They called him like an underground DJ or something. I didn't really fully grasp what the joke was
I'm
there.
assuming
other
like
than,
he's irrelevant as
Yeah.
a DJ. Yeah.
And Turner's was that he doesn't shower.
Yeah, these zings were great in week 2. I don't know, like we're this deep in the game. This is all you have. It's brutal. I mean, again, the Zingbot at the end of the day is part of the, you know, it's part of the lore. It's part of the every season. You're looking forward to this as house guest, but when this subpar stuff comes out, like, man, as a viewer, I'm like, I can think of far better zings for each person here.
I really like this. I feel like Rob brought this up before, but like hearing these zings, I really felt like I was really thinking, yeah, I think it might be time to retire Zingbot. I just like, I don't think they have the writing prowess to pull this off, and it's just embarrassing. Like this is so like, what are they doing? Like hire anybody to write these jokes for them. Like what is happening here?
I have a question for you, Taran. What's the most recent memorable zing to you that you can think of?
Austin BB17?
That, or at best, I'd give you the Christmas one in 19 with the carol, like the song. But even then, that's about like that's what. Yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like don't retire it necessarily. Bring it back every now and then. You know, keep it fresh. I feel like at this point, what do you think the story is going to be behind Zingbot's comp, right? Zingbot has had a baby, has run for president. Like, what else can Zingbot do at this point?
Yeah. It's what are we doing here? Just we can do so much better. So that's the zing. That's the Zingbot. Monty and Terrence are going to talk, and they are not happy with the Michael HOH win. It's this freaking guy. When are we gonna get him out? We gotta beat him. It's very annoying. Well, you know what? Okay, hold on. Even if he does make it to the end at this point, people should consider the whole situation last week, that they used that as a game move. Maybe Michael's not the lock to win that he probably thinks he is. And Terrence is like, oh, you just wait. I'm going to go into that jury. I'm going to convince them that they should not vote for Michael, no matter who he's up against. I'm going to lay it all out for them. I'll let them make their own decisions, but don't you worry.
Yeah, it'll be interesting first if Terrence is able to, you know, convey a message like that. But second, I feel like part of me thinks they're not wrong. You know, we just talked about how he's about to break the record for most comps won in a season, which is very impressive. But also, the wound from what happened last week is pretty fresh, and I feel like Kyle's going into that jury house. We'll see what he ends up telling them. If Terrence ends up leaving very soon, we'll also continue on that. And then, you know, Monty had talked about this with Terrence, and then talked about it later as well with someone else, that you know, maybe if we can't get Michael, we get Brittany out, so that whoever's sitting next, we have options for who we want to vote for at the end. Because if the two of them sit at the end, we have to vote for one of them. So at the very least, if the jury stuff doesn't pan out, they're already like, now there's more of a target here on not just Michael, Brittany, who is someone who no one was really looking at, could be collateral damage here.
Yeah, and I mean, also taking out Brittany so that Michael doesn't have any other outs is worthwhile as well.
Yes,
but obviously, a lot of discussion around the jury situation for Michael. The thing is, I think that like Michael sitting next to Alyssa, Turner, or Terrence, I still don't really see it. I think sitting next to Monty or Taylor, we all considered that he could still probably lose to one of them. Sitting next to Brittany, he definitely wins. I personally don't know that this changes much for me in terms of my jury analysis, unless we really think that that he will lose to like an Alyssa or a Turner. But I just don't see that personally. I mean, we're talking about, Indy and Jasmine, who both love Michael and hate Turner, and they're both mad at Alyssa for screwing their games up. Like, it's certainly possible. You also have to consider the fact that, like, if Taylor ends up in the jury, she's, I think, going to be defending the situation, which I think will be an entirely different situation. So, it's we'll see. I don't know if this is like the big, I know there's not a lot to talk about this week, but I don't know that this is quite the big bomb that it seems to be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're at the end of the game here. Your options are so limited already. So it's all about who wins the comp, what happens. But like you said earlier, the double eviction HOH win, under that pressure, who knows what you're going to do. So.
Mm-hmm. So we will see. I think there's plenty of other bad omens for Michael on the horizon. Brittany does talk to Taylor about the nominations and stuff. They're expecting Alyssa and Terrence. That's sort of what had been talked about. Obviously, there's a final four with Monty, so there's no intention to nominate him, in terms of like how, as far as Taylor is concerned. And they've already talked about not nominating Turner because of what happened last week. They don't want to make it seem like if you do the right thing that you get punished for it. So who goes up? Probably Alyssa and Terrence, according to Brittany and Taylor. Who would be the replacement? Probably Turner, but who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Brittany also mentions that brings up the talk about, when do we take the shot at Michael? And Brittany's new kind of argument that she is positing here is, hey, the thing about taking Michael out is that if you do it too early, then you become the next huge target in the game that everyone wants to take out, because you have now slain the dragon and you are now the biggest threat to win the game. So if, say, we were to take a shot next week, then the rest of the house is against us at the final five. And she's not really wrong here, that it's not really ideal for them to have to be the ones to do it, especially because that does put a target on their backs. But it is something that I think Taylor should start to consider, depending on where the week goes. Taylor does, though, agree with Brittany, at least to her face, that they should let somebody else take the shot at Michael, and then they will then take the retaliating shot at the person who did it.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately, it's like Michael's in first place. You hit him with a blue shell, you take over, you could be looked at that. That is 100% correct. Now, the issue I have is that, this is all fine and well for next week, but Brittany literally said last night, we will take him out of final three if we can. First of all, I don't think Brittany has any intention of taking Michael out. I do not see that. I think she wants to sit at the end with him. They've been together through thick and thin at this point. So for her, it makes no sense. Let's say that. Especially if she's Michael's number one pick to take to final two, and he's winning all these comps. That is a guarantee that I can plead my case at the end. Not bad for you. For everyone else, I do feel like you just have to at some point. The sooner the better. But it's not wrong where, like, if Michael does leave, does that put Taylor in a more compromising position? I could potentially see that also, depending who wins that HOH at final five.
Yeah, and here's the one way where I do think this, potential anti-Michael sentiment actually could have some impact on, like, at least what the strategy could be or should be. I don't think that the urgency for Taylor to take out Michael is really there, right? Because let's say that somewhere along the way, Michael is able to survive to the final 3, but he can't win HOH every week. He can only win veto to save himself some of those weeks. And in doing so, Brittany takes the hit instead, right? Because it's very unlikely that Michael can both protect himself and Brittany with a comp run.
Right, unless he's
Brittany
off the block.
Right, unless Brittany is also winning comps and he's left off the block, which nobody should do at this point. Which means that with Brittany gone, who does Michael take to the final 2? He's talking a lot about Alyssa being a jury threat because of her friends on the jury. He's probably he's talking about Turner as a jury threat. He knows that Monty is a threat. I think that he takes Taylor, and I think that Taylor can beat him.
I think so too.
So I really don't know that, not only is it a risk to take the shot at Michael because then, it's possible that the shot gets retaken at her afterward, but she may be the one person that might not even need to. So I'm really continuing to be in this line of I don't know that she needs to take this shot, and I don't know that she wants to, but I think that she is maybe thinking about it. But it's an interesting sort of situation here, and it really does depend also on how much do we think that this jury stuff is going to stick? Right. Are we sure that Taylor can beat Michael? We'd have to really dive into the specifics of the jury at that point. And also you have to consider the idea that if she does win the HOH and doesn't take a shot, that may lose her respect from the jury, which kind of just makes me feel like just throw the HOH, because if somebody else takes out Michael, that's also pretty good for her, right? So I feel like throwing I was worried about her throwing this HOH because of the shot being redirected at her based on the number of people and who could be nominated. Basically, if she's nominated next to Brittany and then Michael wins the veto, takes Brittany down again, then she could be in trouble. However, moving forward into the final 6, there's no more reason to not put Michael up straight away, which means if he wins the veto, she should be fine. Brittany should be the target. And so I think she is safe to throw the next HOH. And I don't usually advocate for that, especially this far down the road, right. But I actually feel like this is a good spot for her to do it.
Yeah, it's not a bad spot to be in. I think the most telling thing will be Thursday's episode upcoming, where we see a jury segment, we see where the minds are going into this final 6, because that'll be very telling about the win equity that Michael will possess, how much of it is lost, how much stays unchanged, and where he goes to the end game. But yes, I do agree with you that I think losing Brittany isn't necessarily a bad spot for her to be in, because then she has Michael potentially taking her to the end, but also Michael still there as the bigger target. So that is not a bad shout there at all.
Yeah, especially because, again, and I think maybe we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but I'm talking specifically about a scenario where both Turner and Monty are still in the game. Mm-hmm. A spot like that where she wins the HOH and takes out Michael at 6 and she goes to 5 with both Monty and Turner in the game, I don't like that for her at all, especially because nobody's really clocking just how close the two of them are at this point. So anyway, Michael's going to get his HOH room, all the usual things. We've seen this plenty of times at this point. He's going to start his one-on-ones. They're honestly not super interesting. He talks to Terrence. They talk so much about Direfest. We've heard these conversations so many times about like clarify. We thought it would be fun that they didn't know what happened on either side, but it's just become a huge thing of just like, anytime we're ever talking, we're just going to re-talk about Direfest again and again and again and again. And they talk about old school and they talk about the leftovers and they talk about all of these things. There's really nothing here. He says he wants to talk to everyone first before he lands on his nominations. He intends to nominate Terrence, so he's just not telling him much right now.
Yeah, I mean, Brittany and Taylor correctly knew what was going to happen, and these talks didn't really change anything. Taran, be careful what you wish for, because I remember you were like, they shouldn't tell them. It'll be fun. But I think the problem with that is that in Big Brother, not knowing something and knowing something has happened will cause you to keep rehashing until you feel like you have the full picture, and that's going to cause us as viewers who know everything to be like, ugh, I'm over this. Can we just talk about something else? Literally, please.
Yeah, I think the problem is that like everything blew up in the way that it did, and now everybody's talking about all of the things that happened in the entire game all the time, and it's annoying. Michael's gonna talk to Alyssa. He gives her the Kyle message. He loves how kind you are. He did. She says she would love to work with him moving forward. She lets him know that there was something that Kyle told her, and that was about an alliance called the Pound. Something to do with Pooch, I guess. And she says that it was him, Joseph, Monty, and Turner, and that he told her that what this means is that Monty and Turner will continue to have loyalty to each other. So watch out. She gives this message to Michael. He should be listening to it, but spoilers, he's not. He says, I can't put up Turner because of last week. That's the only problem. And this is in line with what he said last week. He said to Brittany, he said, I can't put Turner up unless we find something that he's lied about or something along those lines, right? Like something, and he wanted to keep Kyle. Like there are plenty of reasons for him to go back on his word. He just hasn't found them yet. And he's not really looking for them enough, I think, at this point. He sees Terrence as a worthy enough target right now. So he says he's not going to be able to put Turner up. She says, okay, I get it. Your options are pretty limited if you're not putting Turner up. I'm just here to help you, Michael. I want to work with you. I don't want to target you. I'm here for you. Whatever you need, I'm willing to step up and do it. And he's like, great. The people, just people are talking about being worried to sit next to you in the end because of your relationships with the people on the jury. So I think we may end up needing each other in this game. And then they also talk about lots of previous events that happened in the house.
So at this point, it became even more abundantly clear that Turner is not going anywhere this week, most likely, even if the veto gets used. I feel like because there's no reason, like actual evidence that, okay, Turner, you have to go. Again, basing this off of last week's events where Michael does not touch the block and Turner puts up Kyle. But from where I'm standing, if you are talking about potentially scooping up Alyssa now that she's solo, and you know that Alyssa's close to Turner, and Terrence is kind of on an island, why? Why do you not put up Turner and Terrence, try and use that to get some goodwill going with Alyssa? I do not get it, because I genuinely think that he should be prioritizing Turner leaving over Terrence. I do. Even though Terrence will probably put him up, will be targeting him if he wins, I still feel like Turner's the move for him. I feel like there's a missed opportunity here. You're letting your guard down by not looking at Turner, and you repaying him for last week. He is not going to pay you back next week. You will be gone if he wins. So
yeah, I've definitely got more to say on that as well. But let's first talk about Michael talking to Brittany. He says, first of all, his escape room experience helped a lot with the challenge, the competition tonight. He says that he's thinking Terrence and Alyssa on the block. Terrence is the target. His only concern is that people might vote Alyssa out instead. He wants to keep Alyssa around if possible. He'd rather get Terrence out before the double because he's worried about Terrence competing in the double. He says, I do also have to bring up the possibility again. Third time I'm bringing up this possibility, but Monty, right now I'm leaning toward not touching him. but you got to consider the option. And Brittany says, well, I'm concerned about Turner. And I think that we need as much force as possible against Turner next week. So she would prefer not to take the shot at Monty, which is weird to me from her perspective, because Monty is actually a bigger threat to her game than Turner, because Monty is tighter with Taylor, whereas Turner would target Taylor over Brittany. They're all over the place here. Michael says that he hopes that the other side would take a shot at Monty before him. And Brittany is like, no, you dummy. The entire house is going to take a shot at you if they have the opportunity. They have said as much. Even Taylor is waiting for somebody else to take the shot at you. And Michael's like, well, I'm hoping that, is it worth trying to convince people that I'm willing to cut you? And she says, not really. And he's like, I'm hoping that taking out Terrence means that Taylor stays on our side for at least one more week, that she's still willing to not target me for at least one more week. And then I've got you and Taylor competing in the next HOH, and that would be good. And that's probably the smartest thing he says all night. If he's able to get the two of them competing in the HOH for him, that would be ideal, assuming Taylor actually tries to win and assuming Taylor doesn't actually target him. Right. Michael says, okay, well, I want to say something to Monty to make him feel like I want him in the final 3 or even final 2, but I don't want to make a deal with him that I have no intention of honoring. So I don't know. Alyssa talked about how there was still loyalty within that 4 that created the leftovers, but half of those people aren't even here anymore. I don't buy it. Like
still half of it left. There's still half of it left. So
Brittany says, look, once we get out Turner, it's smooth sailing. And he agrees. And yet they're not targeting Turner. Michael says, oh, should we just target him then? Nah, but I'm honestly more concerned about Terrence in the double. He studies, and there's going to be a quiz comp. So they want to try to convince Taylor that there's a chance that Michael would take her to the final 2 over Brittany. They're talking about that. And Michael brings up the notion. He says, look, I talked to Amira about this in the beginning of the season. I don't want to be in that spot like Tyler, where he couldn't honor his final 2s, and then you lose the game because of it. And I am losing my mind.
Yeah, I can see why, Taran. I can see why. It's pretty frustrating to see. This is too much. Like, you're trying to 8-dimensional chess it. It's in front of you. The options are clear. The choices are easy. You just need to make them.
Yeah. First of all, how are we still under the misconception that Tyler lost because he made too many final 2s? We need to just burn this with fire. It needs to go away. It is not true, and it has infected like a whole generation of fans of the show who are going to go on and screw themselves over because they're too afraid to actually make deals in the game. It's awful. Get this out of your heads. You are no super fan if you believe that Tyler lost because he made too many final 2s. Second, what is Michael doing here? Alyssa and Terrence, you are in a position where you have to win all the way to the end. You have to win out. Regardless. You know how much crap Kevin Martin got for using the veto on Ica? Like, at least he still got out Dylan. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like he took out Karen, because that's what Michael is doing. This is like if Kevin Martin was like, I need to get out either Ica or Karen for sure. I've got to make sure that Dylan and Dimitri both stay in the game. Like, what are you doing? This is absurd. It's such a bad idea. Just put up Turner and Monty and be done with it. Like, it's so simple. I think the problem is that Michael if you look through his entire game, he has a fatal flaw. And that fatal flaw to me is that for all the talk of being a cutthroat player, when push comes to shove, he doesn't shove until he's forced to, right? This is his third HOH, and all 3 of his HOH, he has taken the safe move. He has considered taking a riskier move, but he continues to take the safe move. And I think this also plays into his decision to hold on the information with Kyle until he felt like he had no other choice but to release it. Like, he just doesn't want to be bold with his moves in the game. And I think that it's finally going to come back to bite him, assuming he doesn't just completely win out at this point. I just think this is such a bad decision. By putting up Terrence and Alyssa, he is basically guaranteeing that one of them leaves unless he's able to flip Taylor. And that's, it's possible that he can, and he can like rectify the situation, but it's going to be very difficult to, even if he is able to get Turner or Monty on the block, to get one of them out at that point with the votes is going to be hard, because they're all going to probably vote for the weakest player to make sure that they have a strong competitor against Michael in the future.
Yeah. So just remind me, Taran, Michael's not been on the block come a Thursday this season, right?
No.
Yeah, I think that plays into, I think if you win 62% of the comps and you've not been on the block come Thursday, there's a combination of both hubris in that I'll win my way out. Like, I'm not too concerned. I can beat them. That's fine. Maybe I can make that happen. The other is, we've seen him push for stuff when he's not HOH. Like, actively push for stuff when he's not HOH. I'm going to give India sympathy vote. Or last week, literally, we saw him do something where he like went out of his way to like push something and get a new target on the block. But when he's the one in the driver's seat, he's always trying to play like, let me just do this. It's the safe, easy move. Again, you've won 62% of the comps. You've still lost 38% of the comps. And you need to be looking at who could win those comps, because you need as many of them as you can at this point on your road to finale night. And Terrence won 2. One of them he won because simply they were like, the runner-up gets a gimme this week. That's it. He won that because he was second place. The other one, he did win a veto. We'll give him that. Turner has won 2 HOHs. And that Turner was going to put you up if you didn't win the veto. You had 1 out last week, and you got that 1 out by winning the veto. Otherwise, you were done. You were on the block. So to me, knowing that information and not using it this week to do that, you're missing something. You're missing something.
Yeah. Again, the only argument I can see for going in this direction is the idea that he keeps Taylor. He doesn't lose Taylor. But even then, it's like Taylor has no incentive to win this HOH and keep you safe. It's certainly not a guarantee that she does. I also think that there's an easy way to convince Taylor that taking Turner out is good. Like, I don't think Taylor is so set on keeping Turner safe that you couldn't say, hey, you know what? We don't want to punish Turner for doing the right thing, but he did want you gone. And maybe the right thing is to keep you safe, Taylor. There's a way through this. I don't think it takes too much pushing here. I think that this is it's a bad move. Obviously, he's got to win out anyway. I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's definitely game ending, but it certainly could be. If we see Turner or Monty take out Michael in the double eviction, I'm definitely looking hard at these nominations and saying, you were right there, Michael. You were right there in front of history, and you turned aside.
Mm-hmm. And also, I feel like, again, just thinking about it a little bit, Alyssa just came to you and said, there's a remnants of an alliance called the Pound, and 2 of them are still here. Also, that Turner is tight with Alyssa. That is 2 people that Turner could potentially work with, yet you are targeting the one person that isn't Taylor or Brittany that's on the outs of that, which is Terrence. I think there's a chance he can change this still. I'm not fully convinced that the target may not shift, but last night gave me no reason to believe that the target would shift. So
it's just going to be much harder. It's just going to be a lot harder to shift the target. And if Turner or Monty win the veto, then he's stuck. Whereas, he had options if he put one of them up, or both of them up. So we'll see. Anyway, Michael's going to talk to Turner, and he lets him know he's not putting him up this week because of last week. And let me say this too. Michael's not winning any favor by doing this. Nobody cares other than Taylor a little bit. Nobody else cares. Monty and Turner have zero gratitude for Michael upholding his end of the deal. They're still pissed at Michael. They're still talking about not voting for Michael in the end. It means nothing to them that he's doing this. So he's getting nothing from it. But he says, I'm not going to put you up because of what you did last week. And Turner says, I appreciate that. No, he doesn't. He says that he won't be putting Michael up next week if he wins. That's a lie. Michael lets him know that the plan is to put up Alyssa and Terrence. And Turner's like, that's fine with me. If I win the veto, I won't use it unless you want me to. And if you're telling me you want me to because Monty will go on the block, then I will also be lying about this because I'm not going to do it.
Yes. Now, in the order the conversations went, it was initially Terrence and Michael, then then Alyssa and Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And the other part of me is thinking, why didn't Alyssa try and throw Turner under the bus a little bit? Or why didn't Alyssa? Because I think, like you said, Alyssa was like, oh, so I can see why your pool would be limited on who you would want to put up. And this isn't a shock to me, really, but gives even more evidence that Alyssa has made it this far because Kyle would do everything to keep her off the block and keep her safe. And then also, I really thought, because if Zingbot's roasting level is awful, but if Zingbot called me useless, I sure as hell I'm going to try and prove that dumb robot wrong that night. You know what I mean? I'm going to be like, okay, you think I'm dumb? Watch this. Watch me. It's a new age. I'm here. So, yeah.
I think it's a tricky spot there, being one of the first people to talk to him, knowing that he's going to have more important conversations later. He's not telling you yet that you're going to go on the block. If she goes full force against Turner, who is one of her closer allies at this point, then, and that gets out, which Michael has no incentive to not let it get out if he intends to put her on the block. Now she might be losing some votes. Now it might be her instead of Terrence. I think it makes sense to wait and get more information before you really start blowing things up. I think that she should at some point if she feels that she needs to. But there's also some value in being like, yeah, I am useless, so don't vote me out over Terrence. Vote him out, and now I'm still in the game, and now you can't win HOH, and I'm in a much better spot moving forward. So, I would certainly like to see Alyssa push hard here, but I don't know. I don't know if I personally think that she should yet, at least.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see once these noms go through if either of the nominees are going to sing about anything that they've heard, because they've both heard quite a bit over the last while. So they have a lot of information they're sitting on that they could utilize. But these two, will they? Don't know. Do not know.
Right. And that's the thing. And that's where that's where I think that, especially if they're able to, if they're told, hey, you two are going on the block, if they're able to get together and be like, look, why is it us? All four of us are going after Michael. They're the two bigger comp threats. Why are we on the block? And they go to Michael together and say, look, just so you know, Monty and Turner are with us and they're both targeting you. I don't know why you're putting us on the block. It feels like a really weak move. And maybe also if Terrence is giving Michael because Terrence will absolutely feel like he can give Michael just so you know, I will give you the okay to put Turner on the block. I think it makes more sense for you to put Turner on the block than me on the block. Don't you think, Michael? Something could happen there, but I don't expect it to, because that's not really, Yeah, we'll see. Michael talks to Monty. He tells Monty the plan. Monty is on board with the plan. This is fine. It's good. It's not Monty, and it's not Turner, and that's pretty good for Monty. Monty's just like, why are you giving me? Is it my birthday? I don't understand. I mean, thank you. And Michael's going to tell Taylor about the plan as well. She asks him who goes up if the veto is won. He says it would probably have to be Turner, but he wouldn't want to because, again, he doesn't want to punish Turner. She says, well, you could put Turner up and then we could just keep him safe. Put Turner on the block and then vote out Alyssa or Terrence over Turner. And he says, yeah, that's a good idea.
Sound idea. What a good idea that would be. Again, at that point, if you put him up post veto, you gotta look at it as a potential like time to strike. You just have to. It has to fall in place.
Yeah, but his problem is that unless Taylor agrees with him, he won't have the ability to take out Turner on a renom.
Taylor, there's a chapstick at stake here, Taylor. There's a chapstick at stake here. My window's closing, Taylor, please.
Oh, man, I forgot about that. Oh, yeah, no wonder why you're so heated today.
No, for their game and for my betterment, this needs to, like, it is for their game first, it's better. Then for me, it's better. So the window's closing is all I'm saying. And I'm terrified. Like Thursday night, I will know definitively whether or not that's happening. So that Amazon order might have to happen. We'll see.
Oh, boy. Both Michael and Taylor agree that they would like for Terrence to be the one to go over Alyssa. So that at least is on board. And I do agree that Terrence could theoretically win a quiz competition. Taking Terrence out might help Brittany, win an HOH, a quiz HOH, and a double eviction. But I also think that Monty is just as good as Terrence at quiz competitions, if not better, in terms of his performance in them. So, and then also, double eviction vetoes, the one that Michael will actually be competing in, tend to be much more physical. I think Terrence would basically have zero shot to win a double eviction veto if it's a normal kind. And Monty would have a great chance to win a double eviction. Monty is a much bigger threat in a double eviction scenario. Turner also I would say still a bigger threat. I wouldn't say Turner is as big a threat if they go with normal competitions, but that's how Michael is operating. I don't think there'll be normal competitions. They haven't been. So, I don't expect them to be. So, it's just like both Turner and Monty are just so much more versatile in competitions. And I think this is a huge mistake. But Monty's going to talk to Turner and they both agree. Yeah, we're taking a shot at Michael next week. We would be idiots not to. Monty lets Turner know how pissed Terrence is at Michael for what went down last week, saying even that he may not even vote for him in the end, and he may be trying to convince the jury not to vote for Michael in the end. So think about that. And if they can't get Michael, they need to get Brittany. And we talked about this already for reasons that, like, okay, well, if we get Brittany, then at least now one of us might be sitting next to Michael in the end, and maybe we can beat Michael now. Right. So there's that. And again, also the fact that Brittany wouldn't target Michael and you want to get Michael out. So you would take Brittany out if you couldn't get Michael. It only makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like especially this season over other seasons. This season where the tiny veto is the tiny HOH, the slip and slide is a veto competition. Like, you cannot predict what these comps are going to be right now. So to think that it could be a booth, which it could be a question booth, but also wasn't last year's double eviction HOH the throwing the balls into the holes one? Wasn't that the comp last year?
Yeah, the one that Xavier beat, that Ozza beat won. Xavier, ended up beating Xavier. Which just could be anything.
Yeah, to try and game the system on a season as a fan that you have seen, this is literally called the tiny veto for the most part. Now it's the HOH comp. You do not know. If these things flip around, that could be enough to sink your game. Where, the physical components, the HOH, that's not good for me. Like, I thought it was going to be questioned. So I personally would never put stake on stuff like that at this stage after you've seen the comps in your season be flipped around like this.
Mm-hmm. So that was pretty much the night. Monty, Taylor, and Turner are going to stay up pretty late. Just hanging out mostly, not really a lot of game talk there. I did note, though, that at one point they were hanging out by the memory wall and kind of talking about the season as a whole. And it's possible that Turner was faking this, but man, did he not even know the basics about like what was happening this season. Like, wait, who was the person who was HOH when this person was evicted? And they had to tell him. Again, he could be faking it, but he doesn't really strike me as the type to actively be thinking about faking it. He does kind of strike me more as the type that just didn't remember, despite his ability to recall Breaking Bad. So it's just keep it in mind. It's possible. Sometimes these things mean absolutely nothing when it comes to those question comps, but keep it in mind. He may not be able to perform well in the question comps. They tend to be very easy, so it's a pretty low bar, but I think he'll probably be able to do fine, but worth keeping a note on.
Yeah, he's the type, like, he to me is kind of like a C+ student where he's like, he studied, but he kind of glossed over and was fine. Again, the same man who said Cody California at the start of the season. So he might know a little, but not everything. But also he could be putting on a front, but I would probably, based on what we've seen this scene, lean closer to he genuinely hasn't really, memorized all that stuff.
We have somebody in the chat.
I see.
Amon Adwin has a chapstick link for you. In case you need some advice.
Amon, you think I'm you? You think I'm you? You think I'm gonna eat a chapstick on a podcast? I'm not you. It's not gonna happen. Talk to me on Thursday. Send me a link on Thursday. Until then, I still have a shot. So relax with these links. Stop it, please.
Oh boy. All right. That's about what we have from last night. Pooya, anything else that you wanted to bring up?
One thing. I am traveling next week on Friday. I'm going back to Canada. So I don't want to see a single person in the chat be like, he's ducking the chapstick. He's running away from the... No, I'm literally traveling. Okay. That's one.
So you planned your travel knowing that it would be ducking the chapstick.
Listen, play smart, not hard is my mentality. I booked a whole trip out of country for this. Okay. No, it just happened to be the dates that it fell on. But yeah, no, I'm in, listen, the week could be set in stone. There is some room for intrigue. We'll see who wins the veto comp. Imagine Terrence wins the veto comp. Imagine we come out of Saturday, feeds come on. Terrence is wearing the veto. He's chilling. I mean, at that point, they'll take out Alyssa, or are they actually going to consider Turner?
I think it would be Turner. I think that would be best case scenario to convince Taylor to let's just take out Turner. Because I think it'll be harder to convince her to take out Turner over Terrence than it would be Turner over Alyssa. Especially because, again, after the Zingbot zing of Alyssa, like, you're useless, you're dead weight, Taylor was like, man, we were really up in here thinking she was a mastermind. Like, she was a big threat. Like, yeah, we were wrong about that. Like, she is no longer threatened by Alyssa.
Which makes sense.
So that's about what we have for today. Thank you all so much for joining us. Of course, make sure you find me over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Taran Armstrong, hanging out, watching episodes, playing games, doing fun things over there. I also have an Among Us video up this week about me being a sheriff. So check that one out. You can also find my House of the Dragon coverage over on post-show recaps for the book club podcast. I talked about The Sandman. That should be coming out soon as well, with Grace and Rich on post-show recaps as well. You can find all of this stuff over on Twitter at Armstrong Taran. And of course, I'll be back tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 24 live feeds. And I will be live with Rob in just a couple of hours for the patron Q&A. If you want to call in, ask us some questions, talk about these things in detail. We will also be going over our interview with Kyle, the questions that we were able to send to Kyle. We should get those back and go over them a little bit later today. So make sure you tune in for that as well. Pooya, where can people find you?
People can find me on Twitter at Pooyaism. You can find me on Twitch tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. I'll be going live. We'll be talking to the chat, talk some of this Big Brother stuff out, some other, we talk about a bunch of stuff, about 3 hours. So come through, twitch.tv/Pooya. You can find me there. 90 Day Fiance, Happily Ever After, new season started. I had Rob on with me to talk about the premiere, which was a whole lot of fun. So you can find that as well. And beyond that, just, going to keep one eye on feeds. We'll see how it goes.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today. And I will see all of you next